So I'm going to talk about plates today. I've got 3 small plates out here, and I want to talk to you about the shape of these pieces. So this one here is a plate that is quite flat across the top. It's got an interior space that's separate, very clearly separate both by height and by the glaze application from this exterior rim. If we flip it over, you see the foot ring itself is higher in the middle. The thickness of the clay is thicker here, and the foot ring raises up and comes down a little bit there. Then we have this rim that's quite thin around the outside edge there. The next plate I have here is more of a bowl-shaped plate. You can see that there's a curved floor here that has this even application of a swirled glaze or swirled slip-in glaze. The foot ring is quite small, raised up here, and the whole shape of this wall from here to here continues about the same. The interior floor thickness and the wall thickness is even throughout with just this raised foot ring. This piece is maybe in between the two other shapes. The floor is quite flat, and then it curves up just at the edge here. It doesn't have exactly a frame, has a round, or doesn't have a separate frame, an edge that is distinct like this one back here. The rim is rounded, so it's strong, so it can handle being beat up a little bit. And the foot ring is not very tall. Wall thickness is the same from this edge all the way through the middle of the floor. The foot ring is a little bit wider than the others, but shorter. Swirled glaze application in the interior. The other plates I have to share are larger plates, more like dinner plates rather than salad plates or snack or lunch kind of plates for a sandwich. This piece was made in 2002 and it's been used ever since, and it only has a little bit of a chip here on the rim, and in part that's because of how it was made. It doesn't get beat up like the other ones. It's got a very flat floor, and then probably a rib was used to make this area, this ring, stand up. The glaze has broken on that edge, but not damaged, just kind of split there. This edge here, you can see the line that distinguishes this shape from this, but this essentially all acts as a frame for that interior space. There's no foot ring carved onto this. The piece has been trimmed flat and then maybe pushed in the middle so that it doesn't sit completely flat. If it sits completely flat, it'll cause cracking. It's also a little bit thicker right in here than it is right on the edge. The rim hasn't chipped much, in part because it curves down a little at that outside edge. This piece here also curves down a little on that outside edge, making this rim stronger for being stacked. This piece has an even glaze that was fired in a wood kiln. This is damage from something dropping onto it. It's got a small a narrow foot ring, although the ring itself is somewhat thick. The floor thickness is pretty even from here through to here. No.
I want to watch.
Alright, so this one has this gentle curve throughout, and then this edge that frames it, that curves down a little bit to be strong. It's got the narrow foot ring there, and like I was starting to say, it's a little thicker here and here. This piece has been used a lot as well, probably roughly the same time, maybe 2001. And this piece has, as you can see, suffered quite a bit of damage because it gets knocked around. And the reason for that damage is that this rim both gets narrow and comes up. So as you stack other plates onto it, it gets knocked into quite a bit. And obviously this is something that a maker who's planning to have their stuff used over and over wants to avoid. The floor is flat. You can see a little bit of the throwing swirl in the middle through the glaze. The wall comes up very simply. On the back, the foot ring is relatively narrow. And this is a relatively thick piece, not as thick as the wood-fired piece, but thicker than the others that I've got here. This is a slightly more recent one, maybe 2006, 2005. It has a distinct difference between the floor and the wall, although it's a gentle transition. I can see it in the way the light reflects on that floor, a little bit of of change in the shape of the lines. The foot ring on the inside is really narrow, and you can see that the glaze goes all the way to that edge right on the inside there. This one doesn't have much damage, in part because it's quite large and so it's used less often, but you also see that this thick rim curves down at the outside edge. And the last one I want to share with you is a more decorative piece. You can see the floor is relatively flat throughout here, although you can also see the outline of where the foot ring is. The walls curve up, and then there's these added sprig decorations. This piece is used decoratively. It's obviously not used for everyday use, and it's not stacked because these would suffer damage.